Now, I've had to watch a lot of very bad telly for this show. The Monkees, The Night of 100 Stars, The Black and White Minstrel Show. And the event that aired on CBS, Today in History in 1978, is by far the worst out of everything I've had to sit through for research purposes. And I couldn't even manage it. I conked out 37 minutes in because I thought to myself, I would rather live the next hour of my life doing anything but watching this. And that is...
The Star Wars Holiday Special.
I mean, obviously, it's objectively an extremely painful watch, but I do think it's also a necessary antidote to the people who take Star Wars too seriously. And I say that as someone who frequently takes fictional characters way too seriously. And I think my favourite thing about it, we'll get into the plot, we'll get into why it doesn't work in any sense.
I don't think I can even handle the next 10 minutes of going over the plot again.
My favourite thing about this, as someone who is a bit, I'm kind of a bit of a TV dork, is that the lineup of guest stars is a classic 1978 variety show lineup. The guest stars are Harvey Korman from The Carol Burnett Show, Diane Carroll, Art Carney from The Honeymooners, Bea Arthur. These are the people who would be on any other Friday night variety show in 1978, but they have been plonked into the Star Wars universe, and I cannot stress this enough, with absolutely zero effort.
And it ended up being this hugely anticipated event. It had a full-page advertisement that was taken out in the TV guide. That was a big deal at the time. It had a runtime of 98 minutes. So, Olly, there was a lot that you didn't manage to see. And a huge home audience tuned in for what was regarded as being the second installment in the Star Wars saga.
I mean, that is funny. You're right, Rebecca. That is amusing.
Yeah. But it's telling that in the whole time that followed, it was never screened again. It aired only once. And George Lucas himself said that if he could, he would happily have taken a sledgehammer and gone down and tracked every last version of it and smashed them to bits. He hated it so much.
Okay, so how did this very bizarro thing come to air? Well, obviously, we're in 1978 and Star Wars is clearly the biggest franchise of all time, right? They know they're going to make more of them. They know these characters are gold. And you have to remember as well, this is the time before VHS. So if you're, 9 years old and you love Star Wars in 1978, you've been to the cinema to watch it 4 times. Like, it's still on in cinemas a year after it opened. Such a mega hit is this. And George Lucas is approached by the TV company Smith Hamill to do a Star Wars TV one-off. And this is a time when telly was very much the poor cousin of films. Like, I can see why he thought, I'm a serious filmmaker. I've just made this cutting-edge technological breakthrough. The people who make the telly show with Bea Arthur and Jefferson Starship and stuff, they can make the variety show with my like character license in it. What's the big deal? Like, it's fine. People won't think it's Star Wars 2. It'll just be a way of making a bit of ka-ching off the back of this massive hit that we've got. We can make some more toys. Yes. Okay. You guys go ahead and make your TV show. In California, by the way, I mean, George Lucas made all his films in Elstree Studios in Hertfordshire. It's not even in the same country where they made Star Wars. So it's just like, yeah, you go off and you do that. You film it in Burbank. You put some guest stars in it. It's a Thanksgiving special and it's a bit of fun. What could go wrong?
Yeah, I mean, Lucas was busy working on The Empire Strikes Back, and his thought was, this will keep Star Wars in the public mind. It would boost merchandise sales in the run up to Christmas. And he kind of envisioned it as being like a fun bridge between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, which today you can totally see. If that was like a Disney Plus miniseries, it would work. It would work a treat. The problem was they didn't, Star Wars at the moment was just a film that had been a really big success that they were making a sequel to. There wasn't millions of dollars floating around to make a prestige TV show to explore this universe. Instead, there was this. Lucas worked on the first draft of the script, but then, he got too busy. Like you say, he didn't really think it was sort of worth his time. So the final product was largely the work of Bruce Vilnac, whose credits up to this point consisted of specials for Barry Manilow and Bette Midler, 23 episodes of the Donnie and Marie show, and Pat Proft, who had gone to work on the Naked Gun and Hot Shots movies. Both of them, had long careers as comedy writers, but they're not your first choice for a Star Wars screenplay. Vilnac later told Vanity Fair that he told Lucas, "You've chosen to build a story around these characters who don't speak. The only sound they make is like fat people having an orgasm." And he said that Lucas's response was, quote, glacial.
We should clarify, that's the Wookiees, right? So the whole thing is based around Chewbacca's family back at home on their home
You don't
planet.
get to tell us what it's based around. We know you only watched 37 minutes.
Well, I watched the first 5 minutes. I was really paying attention. I was like, why is this like a Ken Loach film but with Chewbacca's in it? Like, it's like a kitchen sink drama. The pace is off.
Well, and the reason was that this whole thing spun out of an original idea that was kind of one of George Lucas's starting thoughts when he was writing the Star Wars saga. He had this idea that, like, the whole story could be told through the perspective of Chewbacca and his family talking on their planet of Kashyyyk about how Luke and Han and Leia took on the evil Empire as part of the Rebel Alliance.
With no subtitles.
Yeah. And
despite the fact they speak in grunts.
Right. And then although that was cut from the actual Star Wars movies, obviously, it ended up being the inspiration for whatever this was. But as Lucas himself observed, he said, it just kept getting reworked and reworked, moving away into this bizarre land. They were trying to make one kind of thing and I was trying to make another, and it ended up being this weird hybrid between the two. I'm not sure either position would have worked on its own, but by combining them, it definitely didn't. And that's absolutely true. Like this, whatever they ended up with, this sort of variety show, musical numbers, bit of animation, even though there are sort of, I suppose, and you didn't encounter any of them, Olly, but there are some vague highlights as it goes along. It didn't live up to the idea that they set out with, if you even take the sort of there being a coherent idea to begin with.
None of these people have any idea what they're doing there or what Star Wars is. Bea Arthur later said she appeared in it for her son. And so it turned out to just be this series of like kind of weird, campy skits. You know, there were Star Wars parts. They actually used some unused footage from A New Hope, which just makes the juxtaposition even more jarring because all the stuff that doesn't involve the cast of Star Wars is the guest stars doing basically what they would do on any variety show appearance. So you've got Harvey Korman, who's doing a space chef with 4 arms, which is a parody of Julia Child. You've got Bea Arthur doing a cabaret number that just happens to be in the Mos Eisley Cantina, which honestly was my personal highlight. That bit was good. You can almost forget, but that's because it's got nothing to do with Star Wars. And so you've just got this very odd end product, and it won't surprise you to know that there was a lot of cocaine involved in the writing process and also in the acting process. Carrie Fisher was apparently high as a kite as she performed the climactic, you will have missed this, Olly, Life Day Carol, yes, to the tune of the Star Wars theme, a performance she apparently insisted on as a condition of participating.
Well, but that I kind of get. Like, yeah, I'll do the Star Wars special, but if I get to sing, like as an actor, that's a string to your bow, isn't it? Doing a big holiday special and doing
Imagine being the screenwriters trying to piece this together and then hearing that near the end.
I guess the budget just went on the big cast names, didn't it? Because it's not only Fisher that's in it, it's also Harrison Ford and Mark Hamill. Once you spent the money on them, then you've got like painted backgrounds as locations and some very ropey green screen. And also, I guess, the whole thing that we're saying, which is it's a variety show linked together with bits of Star Wars, what a terrible idea. That in itself wouldn't have looked as weird in 1978 as it does now, because that's what telly was, right? But it's just that there's no coherence between all of the things that are happening or any reason why a child would be interested in it. That's the other thing. You say they participated because their kids were watching. But I was thinking, I'm so glad I watched this late at night, which is the right time to watch it. Unfortunately, I hadn't taken loads of cocaine. But I was thinking, I'm so glad I didn't make my 6-year-old stay up to watch this because my 6-year-old could not cope with it because it's unwatchable. At no point has anyone thought, what might a Star Wars fan actually want to see?
But I think this is the thing that, like, the actors kind of were roped into participating out of contractual obligation. But also, we look back at Star Wars as being this inevitability, this absolute juggernaut that was obviously going to succeed. But its success wasn't inevitable at the beginning. And I think even the actors themselves were kind of wanting to keep the ball rolling on that kind of surprise runaway success of the first film. But none of them were particularly happy with what they went through once they signed up. Harrison Ford describes the whole experience as an embarrassment. Carrie Fisher wasn't any kinder. She called it awful and not in a good way. Mark Hamill, he's the only one who had something positive to say about the holiday special. He said he knew it was a mistake from the start, but doesn't feel that anyone involved should be ashamed of it because it showed how fallible they all were. I think he just thinks of it as this sort of...
I mean, that's a very, very tenuous compliment.
I mean, he's very charitable in all things, Mark Hamill. But anyway, some of the elements from the show remained in what became the expanded universe of novels and comics and video games. But the holiday special's canon status was ended when Lucasfilm was purchased by Disney and brought about this massive reshuffling. And they were like, well, let's just not include anything about that. It was kind of struck
bullshit.
From the record.
It's still, you can't just strike things out of canon because they're terrible. It still happened. It's still canon. And in fairness, it does have a connection to Star Wars canon, because if the holiday special isn't canon, then where did Boba Fett come from? Boba Fett made his debut, one of the most beloved side characters in the entire Star Wars franchise, had never appeared to audiences before this holiday special, where he starred in a cartoon.
The toy manufacturers Kenner axed their plans to release a toy line based on Chewbacca's family after the show aired.
His beloved son, Lumpy,
Itchy
and his dad,
Lumpy.
who watches VR porn of Diane Carroll.
Yeah. Apparently it turned out not every 7-year-old wanted that attached to their school bag.
And so ends another curious moment from history. Subscribe now to hear more from Arion, Rebecca, and Olly, the Retrospectors.